Hi, my name is Parker Schmid. I am in MEGR 3244, Tire Mechanics with Dr. Ptacek at UNC Charlotte. And this video is for extra credit. I am going to be showing how to change the tire on two different bikes. This one here, it's just a normal wheel setup with tubes and everything, and then talking through how to change the tire on a bike that has tubeless tires. So let's get started first with this bike. We'll be changing the front tire first. Alright, so the first thing we'll do is we'll take the tire off, and we'll use the quick release to take the tire, the wheel, out of the dropouts on the front fork. Just do the quick release, loosen it up, all while holding the wheel with our knees. Once it's loose, well, not loose enough yet. Once it's loose, we take the fork and just lift it up and roll the wheel away. And now we can gently set the fork on the ground, and our wheel's free. Alright, so now we have our tire off the bike. The first thing that we're going to want to do, because this has a tube in it, is we are going to take the air out of the tire. So we'll take the cap off of our valve stem, and you can use the curved side of the cap if it has one, and just start letting air out of the tire. So we'll do that now. And if you want to go a little faster, we're going to need this tool called a tire lever, and we can use that to release air faster. Alright, now our tire is pretty flat. We're going to want to save the valve stem cap. We'll just put it on the ground next to us. This particular valve stem has a ring on it right here, and we'll loosen that so that the tube can come out. This locking ring is meant to keep the tube in place so it doesn't twist around inside the tire. Alright, so now that that little locking ring is off, we can start unseating the bead of the tire. And we actually might want to let a little more air out. There we go. So we'll take our tire lever, and we will use this side to pull in on the bead, get the tire lever underneath the bead, and pull out so that the bead flips over. And then we can just go along the entire bead of the tire, and it will unseat. Sweet. So now the tire is unseated, and we can pull out the tube, which is what we're going to do. So to pull the tube out, we'll go to the valve stem, push up on the stem now, and reach inside the tire. And pull the stem out. So now the stem is on the outside of the rim. From there, we can just take the tube. From there, we can just take the tube and pull it out of the tire. Notice that the tube still has a bit of air in it, and that's actually something we want, though maybe not this much air. As that'll help us put the tube back in once we're ready to do that. Now our tube is out of our tire. We'll set it in a safe place. Alright. Now that the tube's out, to get the tire all the way off the rim, we're going to take the tire lever, on the back side of the tube here. And we're just going to lift it up. So get it underneath the tube, lift it up, and we'll pull it over. And then to do the same thing as before. And slide the lever across the tire. And then once it's off a bit, you can just pull it all the way off. And there you go. There's our bike tire off of the rim. Here's the rim. Here's the tire. Alright, so now we want to take our tire and we want to put it back on our rim. Alright, we want to take our new tire and do that. Here's our rim. Here's the tire. Let's go. So first we're going to look at which direction the rim is going to be spinning, because it's easy to put the tire on the wrong way. The tread on the tire is such that it needs to go a particular direction for the best grip on the dirt. So on our bike, the brake caliper is on the left-hand side, so we're going to have, if we're looking at the rim, we're going to have our brake caliper on the left-hand side. Sweet. So this is the way our rim goes. Now, you want to match the tire with that. And tires typically have a markation that shows their rotation, and here it is on this tire. I don't know if that'll show up in the camera, but it says rotation right there. So we've lined that up. We know it's going to rotate this way, and the tire is going to rotate this way, and the rim is going to rotate this way, so this is the right orientation. To start getting the tire on, we'll just get part of the bead set on the tire, on the rim. Start feeding it around. And at some point, we may have trouble, we may need to get the lever to get the rest of the bead on, but sometimes you can just do it all by hand and get that first bead set without a tool. This one's not going to go so easily though. So we're going to take our tire lever, get it on the inside of the rim, and just slide it along to help encourage the bead to get inside. And just like that, now our tire is halfway on our rim. Perfect. Now we need to put the tube back inside the tire. So we're going to find our tube. Here's our tube. We're going to make sure it has some amount of air in it. This is probably still too much air, so we're going to let a little bit of it out. We want just enough air so that the tube holds its shape a little bit, but not so little that it's just totally flat. Okay, so that's probably about good. So now we want to find the hole where the valve stem goes. Pull the tire back off of the rim a little bit and just stick the valve stem through the hole in the rim and feed the tube up into the tire. So here we're just sticking it up there inside the tire. Okay, so now our tube's in our tire part of the way, but it's not all the way in there. Alrighty, so now we have our tire with our tube inside of it, and we want to carefully take the rim, or take the tire and seat the outside bead around the rim, making sure we don't pinch the tube. At first it's pretty easy to just do by hand, but once we get down to the last little bit of the bead, we're going to have to really make sure the tube's up in there and not getting pinched. See right here? I don't know if you can see that, but this is the tube, this is the tire, this is the rim. This is something we want to avoid pinching. And sometimes we might need to let a little bit of extra air out of the tube so it fits better, and in fact I think that's what I'm going to do. So now, yeah, it fits up there much nicer. Just carefully and gently getting the bead set. Some tires you're able to just do all by hand. Others you're going to need to use a tool, such as a tire lever, but this one I think we're going to get all by hand. There you go. So now our tire is set. We'll make sure the valve stem is straight. Now our bead's in there. This is where that locking ring comes back into play. This locking ring not only holds the tube in place, but helps get an air pump nozzle on the tube while it's flat, because otherwise it'll have a propensity to want to stick up into the rim and you won't get a good seal. So we'll tighten that down pretty decently and we'll get our pump. Alright, so now we've got our handheld pump here, and we're going to go ahead and get it on the tire, on the valve stem, seal it up, and we'll start pumping. Alright, so now we got our tire filled up with air, and sometimes the beads on these will pop really loudly when you seat them, but a lot of times with tubed tires, it just slowly sets itself and it doesn't make a lot of noise. We pump this up to about 33 psi. That should be plenty to seat this. And when you are putting a tube in a tire, you just want to look around and make sure the bead looks kind of even around all sides. And looking at it, it looks like it's all even now as compared to earlier. And so one of the last things we'll do is we'll take our little locking nut here, and we'll just tighten it down. And then we'll take our cap for our valve stem and we'll put that back on. And now we're ready to throw the tire back on the bike wheel, which is what we'll do right now. Very similarly to how we took it off, we're going to pick up the bike, get the tire in there, and then we're going to line up the front disc brake and the dropouts, and we'll drop it on there, and it'll drop into place nicely. And then you want to hold the frame as best you can while you're tightening the quick release. And once we get it about as tight as we want, it's too tight, tighten it down. We'll check to make sure it spins right. Seems good to me. So there you go. That's how you change the tire on a bike with a tube. Alright, so now we're ready to talk about tubeless tires. Tubeless tires are not are becoming more standard on bikes, but they're not the standard. Tubes definitely are still the standard way to keep a tire full. On nicer bikes, you can get tubeless because it saves on weight, things like that, and you can run them at lower pressures than you would a tube tire, because with a tube, you risk pinch flats if the pressure is too low, where the tire compresses too much, pinches the sides of the tube against the rim, and that can cause a tear or a hole. On tubeless tires, you can get rid of that problem. And actually they have some ability to reseal themselves because the tires are filled with a small amount of sealant that can find holes if they're poked in the tire and fill them and congeal. And you can keep riding, just put a little more air in. So we're going to take the front tire off of this bike. This is a Kona Hanzo bike. And so there's something interesting about this one compared to the last one taking the tire off. And that is, it has what's called a through axle rather than a dropout. So here, just the same, we have to undo a lever, and then we loosen the through axle. Then we just pull the axle all the way out of the wheel. And then similarly, we just lift the bike off, the dropouts, and our tire is free. So here's the interesting thing. See if I can line this up with the camera. There you go. So there's just a hole straight on through, rather than having the axle that's connected. Our axle's right here. And so what this does is it allows for a much more secure way to attach your wheel to your bike. And it's a lot easier to use. It's a lot easier to use for sure. So, because I don't have any extra sealant right now, I'm not going to demonstrate how to actually take the tire off in full. The process for getting the tire off the rib itself is very similar to the bike with the tube, as far as setting the bead and things goes. But rather for this kind of tire, it's a lot more similar to a car tire, where we'll take the core out of the valve stem, let all the air out, then we'll start to pull the bead off, and a lot of times we can just put a new tire on, get the bead kind of set without any air, without any sealant, and then we'll pour sealant through the valve stem, shake it around, get it coated in there, put the valve stem back in, and then we will put air into the proper inflation, shake it around a little bit more, and you're good to go. And that's what I just recently did on this tire, in fact. So yeah, otherwise would have made a video about it, but it's too late. So to put this tire back on the bike, we'll go back over to the bike here, and just like before with the other bike, we'll lift up the frame and everything, and we'll line up the disc brake with the rotor and the dropouts with the wheel. This time we'll take our axle and we'll put it through the wheel, and it takes a little bit of jimmying until it won't go through anymore. And we just start to tighten it down. And once we get it to the right tightness, we'll just close the clamp, make sure it spins. It's not making any noise, so we're good to go. Tire's been changed, tire's been taken off. And for the back wheels for each of these bikes, it's basically the same kind of process, except you just have to make sure the gear train gets put, like the chain just gets put back on the gear set right. So, in conclusion, that is how you change the tires on a bike that has tubeless wheels, and a bike that has wheels with tubes as well. So, hope you enjoy, hope you learned something, and we'll talk to you all later.